Hey everybody, this is my first video in quite a while. This model took a really long time for me to build. I spent most of my time just sort of figuring out as I was going along, and I think it turned out pretty well, but it took a while with everything else going on and trying to get this right. So the base, the floor is actually 3/16 foam core, but I wanted to keep the walls relatively to scale. So these are, all of the walls are 1/8 inch foam core. And you'll see the band-aid there where I cut my finger open. That wasn't fun. So I'm using these 1, 2, 3 blocks just so I can try to more accurately get my pieces to stand up straight. I have the worst time with just trying to keep everything level. I do everything I can. I measure twice, mark 3 times, cut once, but for whatever particular reason, it never seems to work out very well. So anyway, now that when I get all that's done, the first mistake I made was essentially I didn't put these notches in first, and I should have done that, but I didn't think about it, and I needed it to be relatively square and supporting the whole time when it comes up. So because of that, I had to go back and add, rafters to the whole thing. It also helped with the look too. So this is the piece for the roof, and sort of how the angles go to make sure that I have all this stuff correct. I was going to do an attic, but I just really ran out of time. I had a lot of ideas that I wanted to do for this model, but it probably would have taken me another month to to get it all done. So I just decided that it was best to just do a roof piece and go from there. So the big thing about this whole project is to have all the levels separate, right, with magnets so they can be playable. But the thing I didn't want to do is I didn't want to have the level with the walls that are so tall that it would be really hard to move around. So that's why I have them actually each level separate twice. Well, each level has its own separate pieces, I guess. So 5 in all. I'll get it right here eventually. It's, as I say, I've been modeling a whole lot today. So, okay, so now that all this is done, this is the very first floor. So I'm going to get some basic wall patch. I'm telling you right now, don't do this, what I'm about to do, because I knew better, but I wasn't listening to my gut. You want to get the vinyl stuff. Do not get the plaster-based drywall stuff, because there's too much water in it, and it will warp everything. And I knew this ahead of time. I just wasn't thinking, and I did it anyway. But anyway, whatever the case may be, the whole point is to put a thin layer down. I didn't want to do this like wood, because I figured this is sort of middle class peasant. So I wanted to make sure that this was essentially going to be like a dirt/stone floor. So what I did was I got a sponge, waited for it to dry up a little bit, and then wetted it down, and then pressed very firmly into it enough to create texture. But then I had to keep going back and making sure that all the stuff was off of the sponge. Otherwise, the texture wouldn't, last very long. So you had to push down quite a bit, and that has to be relatively thick to hold the texture. It worked, but yeah. Okay, so I was trying this stuff out. This is that vinyl stuff I was telling you about. Probably would have been a lot better using that on the floor. But I still didn't really like this brand too much. It was nice and thick, but when it dries, it's a little, I don't know, a little fluffy, a little too soft. Does not dry hard. So, but anyway, I'm gonna try it out at this point. So I'm putting a bunch in there, and I think I'm going to add a little bit of glue. I'm not sure, but anyway. So I found this Talus, whatever you want to call it, railroading stuff. And it's a little bit bigger. So I spread the stuff on the walls. I thought I had this in the video, but apparently I don't. So I spread it on the walls, and I push it in. These are actually the perfect scale for like 7 or an 8-inch creekstone kind of thing. And because these little pebbles have different various shapes and specifically different colors, I thought it was actually, I don't know, kind of a welcome addition to get that stonework without having to try to do it all in foam. I'm trying to not use as much foam in my builds. It's a great medium, but I don't know. It's relatively inexpensive, but the stuff is just, it has like a shelf life of like 200 years in the ground. So it's like, let me do the other stuff that'll degrade pretty quick. Except that as I'm saying this, the foam that's inside the foam core is going to last forever too. So I haven't yet found that happy sort of medium place for my materials. But needless to say, I'm trying to see about other stuff other than just like sort of foam based stuff. So anyway, this stuff I actually like it. I probably needed to go back over it a second time, but it is what it is. But I think it turned out pretty good overall. Seeing as how this is like the stone foundation and whatnot. So you can see where the floor had warped the base level. So it's all still relatively wet. So I'm hoping to counter it a little bit. Spoiler alert, it does not work completely. It's still sort of puckered up. But I don't really know. Use vinyl. Use the stuff that doesn't shrink. But anyway, after all the rock is done, I get all the loose rock off, and then I use tacky glue. Put a big thick coat of tacky glue over the whole thing to make sure that the rocks don't go anywhere. And it worked pretty well. This clip took forever. So I'm going to end up doing that. Okay, there we go. Finally. Good Lord. Okay, so this is balsa wood. And this is, I think, 3/16 by 3/16 balsa wood. The reason for this is going to be the sort of barrier between this level and the next section, I should say. Because I know that the magnets are going to go in here, so I needed to have something a bit more sturdy than just sinking them into foam. Which is a big reason why I used a lot of wood on this project. Mostly balsa, but a little bit of basswood, something. Okay, so everything on the outside. Now see those rafters there? Those are basswood. And everything I'm doing on the outside is going to be balsa, and everything on the inside is base. The reason is that I wanted to texture the balsa wood a little bit better, and basswood is not very easy to texture. So I wanted it to be able to, and also the more you mess around with it, it starts to push on it, sink in, you get thumb marks in it and stuff like that. And it actually ends up being, kind of a nice looking weathered effect by the time that you're done with it all. But I'm sort of, everything's a little warped because I just wasn't thinking about it properly when I started building. I usually plan a project for 2 or 3 weeks, if not more. And for this one, I just sort of did a basic sketch on what I was going to have it look like and what I wanted. It was inspired off of a sort of a fantasy photo painting that I found, but I can't find it again to reference it, unfortunately. So anyway, I used it as a base model and sort of designed a little bit around what I wanted it to be from that. But I just kind of jumped into it when I was building it, and the downside for this one is that that's why everything, this first floor is really not entirely level and a little off, and one of the walls is actually a little skew, but yeah, it is what it is. I'm just going to chalk that up to the builders weren't very good at making houses. Yeah, definitely not my fault. I'm just trying to keep it realistic. So anyway, this is me kind of spending way too much time. I think I spent probably 2 or 3 hours off camera trying to make sure this worked and stop stuff from warping on me. Most of the time I failed miserably, but what I was trying to do was take the balsa wood and slowly put them together and compare it to the bottom so I can make them level, but it just didn't work. That first level was ugh. But there it is, you know, all off camera. It took a while, but all of that is balsa wood on the outside, and now this is the basewood strips, and the basewood strips is going to be just like the ones on the outside. It's just going to go on the inside, and for whatever particular reason, I feel it's necessary to just illustrate this in videos constantly. I keep forgetting that I'm talking while I'm building, but I don't keep the audio, and so then when I go back and do this, I kind of wonder why I keep overly explaining everything so much. I mean, you know, everybody knows, okay, yes, balsa wood, cut it, glue it, there you go. But I don't know. So anyway, boom, there it is, magic. So I have all 4 interior and exterior pieces taken care of. But I'm also noticing that it's not leveling up. And here I am probably going to over-explain that thing for about 20 or 30 minutes on camera. And just point to a bunch of random things over and over and over. But there's, as I say, and forgive me, as I say, I was in a rush to try to, you know, make some progress on the stuff. So some of the stuff, a lot of it I had to do off camera. But I had to cut a hole, you know, for the stairs because I forgot to cut the stairs. And because of that, the rafters, I needed to be able to have it to where, you know, the stairs would actually fit. So I had to go back and sort of cut the rafters a little bit and then put a middle brace in there, so that way it all worked out and leveled off. For this video, I'm actually not going to build the stairs because, as I said, I just ran out of time. I had to hurry up and get this thing done, you know, or at least finished for the time being. And I think I'm going to call this part 1, so that way I can actually, you know, maybe not necessarily this very next one, but I can come back to this thing and add to it. So I'm not really quite sure what I'm going to say, you know, just yet as far as the title, but I did have plans to call this a bakery, and that was my initial idea, is to make this sort of a bakery / apartment. But because I didn't have enough time to build the oven and everything, it's really just a house. You know, it's kind of hard to call it a bakery when there's no oven. But so anyway, so this is that completely enclosed roof section. So this is all balsa, and everything around it is balsa, and then even the I honestly think I ran out of balsa wood, so I ended up cheating and doing it the other way, you know, and using basswood for it. I think, I can't remember exactly at the moment, but this was tedious. That took forever. I mean, I'm gonna flip this over here in a second, but man, look at all of those rafters and stuff, man. That just took forever. And can you believe I did that freehand with no ruler? I'm kind of happy and proud of myself because that was relatively even. Okay, so this Plastruct stuff, I really wanted to do the roof by hand, but I just couldn't figure out a good way of doing it that didn't take like 40 hours. So I ended up just deciding to buy this. Now they come in 2 sheets, and it's like $16 a piece at the store near me. They're the only ones that sell it, so I didn't have a choice. I think you can get them online for maybe $12. They're nice. They're just ridiculously expensive. But but it worked. Now for this case, I actually liked it upside down better. Not up to down, down to up, but like the front side of it has one way and the back side of it's the other. And I think the back side actually has a better relief to it. So I actually preferred it the other way around. So I hot glued the roof down, but I also noticed that the hot glue was just not sticking very well on the edges. So I had to go back and kind of clean that up quite a bit. And you'll notice why this is like two pieces is because when I first built this thing, I had it going all the way back, and then I decided I wanted to make the porch and have it covered up a little bit. So this is the porch area. So I went back and added some extra pieces. For the right now, I'm not going to have any blueprints for this, any kind of sort of instruction manuals or sizes and stuff like that, templates. But I am going to be working on them, and I will have them on my Patreon. It'll be the first one, actually, of my whole Patreon that I will not have open to the public, so this way I can kind of help encourage people to please, support my Patreon, which is very sprawling. I have one person right now. Thank you to that one person, because they've been with me for a few months now. So this will be the first one that'll be, my Patreon only. So anyway, so because this is balsa, there is that little thing there. So I'm just gonna, it's very light. I don't want to put too much to it, but I'm just trying to open up the grain a little bit. So then that way, by the time that I actually stain the wood, it'll really, it'll dry and then expand the balsa a little bit better. So because I don't want to ruin everything underneath of my mat or my table, I'm going to put this foam down so I can work on it. So now this is sort of my homemade stain. It is mostly art ink from, oh, you know what? I can't actually, Liquitex, that's what it is. It's like Liquitex. It's their artistic ink. I really do like them. They're ridiculously expensive, but I've had these sitting around for a while. So I used, I think it's burnt sienna. I'll put all of my materials in my description, but it actually does a really good job, and it does a very good job on that basewood stuff. As I say, basewood, if you use stain that has like sort of a paint primer, or base, it's not going to do very well. But this stuff does a marvelous job, and I just cut it down quite a bit, and then it's as I say, I think it's like burnt sienna, and I put like maybe 4 or 5 drops of black in it as well, just so I can get a little bit deeper tone to the whole thing. I figure the wood all was sourced from the same spot, so I'm not worried about trying to make it, a different color wood. So I do all the wood the same, the interior and the exterior. And see, even though this is balsa on the outside and base on the inside, see how the stain works? It's pretty close. It's a little darker on the balsa, of course, but it's pretty close. And you wouldn't be able to get that with a paint base stain, or whatever you want to call it. It'd be better just to go ahead and use paint, actually, as opposed to it. And I ended up having to do that a little bit to touch it up with actual paint, because once you do stain, the worst part about it is the glue. If you have any glue on the wood and you want to stain it, it's gonna spot out on you, so you have to go back and touch it all up. Okay, so I'm using this vinyl, and I'm gonna start working on the oh goodness gracious, I'm just losing everything. It's the it's the stuff between the timbers. I'm losing my mind. I should go back and look it up, but you know what? You all know what it is. It's the something and thatch and something. But anyway, it's gonna be this stuff. So the thing about it is that I'm gonna be using this vinyl, and I gotta thin it down, and So there's going to be some water, and then I'm going to add this color. I think it's like off-white, parchment white, and then I'm going to add a couple drops of that sunbeam kind of stuff. The reason is that I kind of wanted it to look a little old without having to go back and age, because I realized I did not want to go back and sort of age this up once I was done, at least in this video. I definitely want to start adding foliage and window, like flower boxes and some other miscellaneous stuff. But as you'll see, that I put way too much water in that, and it's just basically, it's horrible. Also, this vinyl stuff does not cut down very well at all. I eventually got it to work, which it became kind of a sludge, which I wasn't looking forward to, but it ended up actually being sort of a happy accident. So I just slowly put this stuff on there, and I'm gonna tell you what the thing is that I have, every time I do this, I'm always trying to debate in my head whether I should stain the wood or create the texture on the foam board first and then put the wood on it. I don't know. It's just the hardest thing. I can never get it. Just sort of, I'm always retouching stuff up. I guess there's just no way around it because of the nature of it. But so I'm using kind of a thick brush, so I can just kind of put a big blob on the area, and then I can dab it out from there, and I have a smaller brush just for the small details, because at this point I'm actually trying to keep it off of the wood. I think I do the inside first, and then I do the outside, because I had to wait. All of these things, everything took me probably, I had to do one a day, because I had to do the inside and then one day, and then that was it, and then do the outside one day. Because just touching that stuff would immediately, it took a while for it to dry completely, and it would just get all over the place, and I would ruin some finish. So I had to just sort of very patiently wait. So anyway, as I say, most of the floors back in these days were compressed dirt, even castles in many cases, for at least a lot of the floors. But in this case, I wanted it to be dirt, and I was gonna do stone, but I don't know, I just thought it was maybe a little too much. Stone wood, stone floors, creek stones, I figured it would be a little bit more higher class than this middle class that I was going for. Okay, so I bought these little sticks from Walmart, and about probably 1 in 10 is straight. The rest of them are horribly warped or miscut, or I don't know, they're horrible. They're actually, it's a horrible quality, even though they're like $5 a pack or something. And I guess it doesn't matter, for the most part. But as far as like these things being for hobbies, they could. I don't know, here I am just throwing them up in the air because I think it's neat they all stacked together the way they did. So I get so distracted so easily. But what I'm going to do is, believe it or not, because I want to make sure the floor has a certain look to it, because these are, all the upstairs floor is going to be wood. So I literally need to go through and separate everything that does not have some sort of major warp to it. Now, a warp would normally be kind of interesting and visually appealing. The problem is that a warp on the wood, when you're doing it, just makes it harder to do it. So I'm just sort of opting to not do warped stuff. And I'm also trying to, because this wood, I say it's from Walmart, so there's probably about 8 or 9 different types of wood in this pack. So everything from like what looks like driftwood to old pallet wood to, there's just so much stuff. But so I'm trying to find the stuff. I want to create some variety in the floors. The idea that I'm thinking, there's a lot of other trees around besides just one, so they might have done one type of wood like oak for the framing. But as far as the flooring is concerned, they might do something like pine or cedar or something. So you know, and just maybe even fur, just, you know, whatever was nearby. So here I am overly explaining, look, it's a toothpick. So anyway, I'm gonna speed all this up. So this is why it's important to not do the curves, otherwise your floor is gonna be all weird. And because it's small scale, it'll really show up if there's a problem. But I sort of paintbrush on glue, and I have to do like maybe 2 or 3 floor, you know, like layers at a time, because ultimately the glue dries too quick. But to make it, you know, I just sort of randomly cut pieces at different lengths and then started to fill it in. And then I don't try to fill it in 100%. I just get all of the major pieces, and then I go back later to the left or the right and then actually fill in the smaller gaps, because it just takes, you know, it just takes too long if I'm just trying to measure everything out completely. I have to go pretty quick, or as I say, the glue dries too quick. But as I say, boom, 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 I'm gonna do all that, boom. Okay, so there it is over on the left. So here I am with this dirt, and I still am no good at making dirt look real. But the thing is that as I was referencing some photographs from actual medieval houses that still had, you know, the castles actually, that still had packed earth floors, they looked like concrete because they were just packed down and sort of and polished actually. So they really did look like stone floors almost, but they were, you know, they were packed earth. So this just looks like, I don't know, you know, I was trying to say, okay, well, some of it's wet, some of it's dry, some of it's a different thing, and I'm gonna have to go back and I think and repaint it, because I'm just no good at you know, creating a dirt relief. I think it would have been better if I just picked a color and just left it one color, because it, as I say, I don't know what I'm doing, and whatever I'm doing, I just decide that I'm gonna keep doing it, because apparently, you know, I keep playing around with it, and obviously it'll get better. You know, if I work on it for 2 hours, it'll get so much better, of course. But I finally say, okay, I'm done. I can't do any more of it, and I can't get the sponge all the way up close without taking a brush to it. So, and then now here's me going back and cleaning off all of the paint off of the stone. But luckily that's pretty easy to do because of that that glue. It made it pretty much waterproof. So here it is, the same stain on this. The great part about it is, see, this is why I spent a little bit more time to get all of that right, and you'll forgive the video because it might look a little weird after compression because all these little lines and so close together. But what'll happen is, to see all the different colors, and you know, some of the wood accepts the stain better than the other stuff. I spent way more time on this floor because I didn't want any of the glue showing on top. So if you ever have any problem with the glue on top, you're gonna have to first sand it. And the downside about sanding is it gets into the cracks and stuff like that, and you lose a lot of the unevenness in the floor. And the unevenness is actually the thing that you're wanting, or at least as far as I'm concerned, I want, because it really does make the floor look like real wood. And this is a perfect scale, actually. It for 160 and for 148. You know, it really does look like paneled wood. I think this would be probably about like maybe 4 inches. So it's still actually, you know, kind of a wide board for what it is, but it's still, I think it turns out really well. And see how like all the different, because of all the different types of wood, they all accept stain differently, like I said just probably about 5 seconds ago. But I like repeating it myself. But now you can see it. Now that I've done a lot more, you can see all the extra grains. So it's kind of important to make sure you spread that out and you play around with it a little bit more. This way you really get that sort of authentic look. If somebody just went out there and cut some trees down and started to, you know, add a floor. But oh, there we go. Okay, so this stuff is I had it laying around, and I had to cut it open because it's old. And apparently it dries in the bottle, which is great. But this is that, it's plastic wood fill. And again, I bought this a while back ago because I actually thought, hey, plastic wood fill, it won't dry. And literally this stuff dried up and caked. The water separated from the material in the bottle that had never been opened, and inevitably dried it out inside the bottle because the water separated from it. So I guess the moral of the story is, if you're going to go buy any of this stuff, go use it quickly. I had it laying around, but anyway, long story short, because of the warping on a couple of the levels, mostly the first one, I had to put this stuff on to kind of help balance out the way things were, so this way there wasn't so much of a gap in some of the areas. Now, I'm not sure if this is probably the best way to go about it, because this took a while, and ultimately it does sand, and that's helpful, but it still didn't work, not very well, so I'm not really sure if there's a good way of doing this, but this was the only way I can think of. And it inevitably did do its job, but I had to do this, and then I actually had to go back and redo it a little bit because it wasn't there. And then when I eventually put the magnets in, that screws it all up too. So it's a little out of order, maybe. It is what it is. I did this for the top and the bottom. Okay, so here's my little drill. Now I'm gonna use Neomagnets. Neodymium. There we go. Okay, so these things are, I bought these at Hobby Lobby. I hate Hobby Lobby, but they're the only ones that I had that were nearby that were open that had neodymium magnets. So I had to do what I had to do. So this is gel super glue, because I don't want it to drip and leak all over the place. So I'm going to take one magnet and then put it on the tweezer, so that way I don't get the polarities wrong. And so this way I can shove it right in. Now these magnets are, I forget exactly what Hobby Lobby calls them, but I think that they're roughly 3mm by 2mm. They're not exactly that, but they're close to it. They don't have a whole lot of choices, but the ones that are meant for minis, they're like 2mm by 1mm. Those are just not big enough to actually support weight. I don't plan on putting this in a wind tunnel and seeing how well it'll do, but I definitely didn't want it to, like if I had to take it in a car, I didn't want a one bump in the car to actually knock the levels off, especially if I put furniture in it. So I used these thicker magnets, so then this way there's a bit more strength to them, and they still fit in the scale of that 1/8 the 1/8 foam core. But by the time that I put the wood on the outside, put all the wood on the inside, and then do all this other stuff, it builds up the level a little bit. But as I say, I'm kind of a stickler for scale, so I try my best to get this stuff to what it would really be like. And the only thing I can't do is that most of this wood, if this were truly medieval, which it's not, of course, it's not authentic, but if this were truly something like closer to it, the wood wouldn't be straight. They were pretty good about some of that stuff, but not 100%. Now you forgive the fact that this is out of focus, but these are called, I had to step away from here for a second. These are called Weatherstrip Nails that I bought from Home Depot. And forgive my audio, I'm having troubles with everything this week. But this is weather stripping nails from Home Depot, and the number 17, the 3/4 inch. But I wanted to make sure these are copper plated. The reason they're copper plated is because they're stronger magnet strength. They'll stick better. You can stainless steel won't is not magnetized at all, so you have to get like steel ones, and the zinc ones don't work. So don't get anything zinc coated. But these things, those were really great. And the great part about them being the finishing nails is that they're sort of serrated a little bit. So all you have to do is literally shove them in, you know, and through into the foam, and they will stick. They will not come out. And I know this because I got the placement wrong on one of them, on this piece actually, and for the love of me, I couldn't get it back out. We'll put it this way, I could probably get it back out. See, there's my mistake, because the floor before this is actually smaller, and I didn't put them in there right. And see, I'm just realizing that. I'm like, wait a minute, I think I put this in wrong. Yeah, I did. But when I put the thing in there, it was, see there, I couldn't get it out. I was like, tweezers, I used a little pair of pliers, I used everything. It would not move, and there's no glue on those. They're just the way they are. Okay, so I had to prime the stuff with like something like Territorial Beige or something. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it worked. It was my base model, so I wanted to have a roof that was kind of weathered but still looked like it was, you know, different color shingles without having to paint, you know, all of the different shingles. One day I'll do that. Well, actually, I probably won't actually. But okay, so I'm just using all of these different colors, and then just I don't know. I kind of like the way it turned out, but I don't know. Maybe a lot of people won't. But I wanted to have it to where it had a weathered look, but then yet again, because it's a wood roof, that these little tiles are all the leftovers, from building the rest of the town. So this is the leftover stuff. So these things are going to be different colors. They're going to have different aging, because some of them have been taken from older buildings. And so anyway, as I say, it's a work in progress. I'm still not quite comfortable with that look. I don't like solid colors anyway, but I was gonna say it's still a work in progress with what I'm really liking. I think it turned out pretty well for the most part. Believe it or not, and I kind of skipped this, but when I'm putting the pieces together for the roof, there's always that little gap at the top of the roof, where the pieces meet and stuff like that. Do you not know I just use hot glue? I didn't even bother. And then I didn't think it was going to work at all, but actually the peak of the roof ended up being relatively decent, and I know it's kind of hard to see in video, but even in person, it looks like the roof was just perfectly okay. That peak where the peaks meet. Okay, so I have to do an aging on the roof because I'm still not entirely happy with the sort of speckling that I'm doing. So I have to sort of make my own. So I'm going to try this, and you're going to see here in a little bit that doesn't work using powder. But I do use those two things from Golden, matte medium and the wetting agent, to make wet water and such. So the thing is that this is the powder from Gamblin, I don't know, the art company. Looks like Gamblin. And this is, the powder is a way to make paint, but they also make really great dusting agents and stuff like that. Thing is, I got those cheap, and like they were on clearance or something. I don't know why, but then I went back to get a couple different colors, and I realized that the actual retail prices on these bottles of powdered paint is like $23 to $50 a piece. They're ridiculously expensive. I got it for like $5. But yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. It also, I'd say, didn't work in this. It was really gritty, and it didn't work. I ended up actually having to add actual paint. So I'm adding glue, tacky glue, and the paint. See, here's I just skip over the errors. But this is I finally got it to where I liked it. So as I say, and I had to use paint. I ended up having to use, like, I think it's called pavement color and some black, and then a lot of more water, and then I had to pour a lot of it out, and then a lot more water. But I got it to where I wanted it to be. As I say, see, there's a lot of that sort of soot from all the chimneys burning coal. There's a lot of just the deterioration from just the rain itself, from the rain capturing all the carbon in the clouds and pouring it right back down on them. This is not the Industrial Revolution, of course, but I'm just kind of playing around with it a little bit. And I say, I'm not 100% happy with it, but I think I spent 10 minutes, really, maybe 15 minutes on the whole thing, painting the roof. And I don't know, you might be saying, yeah, I know it looks like it, but in person though, I was just taking a look at it in person, and it actually doesn't look that bad. It's maybe it's not that great on video, but I was pleasantly happy with it. Whatever. Okay, so you'll forgive me, but I had to do a lot of the stuff off camera for time. Also because I didn't know what I was going to do. This is mostly made from balsa wood, and then I used the same wood flooring as I did for the rest of the stuff. And I literally built this just on, I just held the piece of wood up to it and measured it and cut it until I got what I wanted, and then hoped for the best. And I think it turned out pretty well. Well, when I turn it the right way anyway. There we go. Turn it around. Oh, there we go. Okay. So there's the balcony. And as I say, it's not really 100% level to everything, but I think it worked out pretty well. And I also did these little shutters off camera too. I figured on the first floor, they're going to have these windows that open up, and for security reasons, they're not going to be like these, like modern windows that, or old West windows that have this, the panes and the panels in them. They didn't really do a lot of that back then. So I'm kind of mixing ages and genres up a little bit. I'm just doing what I want. So so you'll see the doors attached to them too. So I didn't know if it was going to work or not. So I say, how many people have seen? Everybody's seen a ton of videos about doors. So what's the point of me doing it again? But here's me trying to find the focus, and now let me just fix the focus. And this is the door I came up with. Sort of an oldie westerny, and I left some space so you can see through it. And I added these little stairs to them. Now the thing is that these doors are separate, so when you pull the level off, the doors can stay. Let's see, do I pull it off again? Probably not, no. So anyway, the doors will stay, and then you can pull the doors off too, separately. I did this because it was important that I keep all this stuff modular. Pop, snaps together, and now here I am putting the magnets on the porch, so then this way it comes off separately. Now because this is balsa, and because it's basically the nail is not much bigger, see, I screwed it up, and I just decided that I was like, okay, I just screwed up all that, so I just said, I'll just put the 3 on the edges. I had to hold on to the pieces and squeeze the wood so that way it didn't split the balsa for each one. So, and then I had to do it slowly because it was a little thicker than I wanted it to be, and I was too cheap and lazy to go out and get some smaller nails. So now here it is, me trying to figure out exactly where the magnets are going to go. So I ended up buying bigger magnets. You can see it far on the far right there on the video. These are like more around 5mm by 2mm, and much bigger, much easier to see. But because the magnets are going to be upside down, I figured, you know, who in the world would be looking at this thing, you know, from like its ground? Nobody would. So I could go ahead and compromise and put some bigger magnets on there. And the reason is that I thought I was going to screw up. So I wanted to make sure that that little nail made contact with an actual magnet, so that way it didn't throw it off. See, that's the thing too you have to worry about, which is important for bigger magnets, because there's going to be sort of a center of its polarity. And so if you have a small nail, it's going to find itself, my air conditioner came on there, but it's going to find itself attaching to the center of the magnet. So if it's off, it's going to throw, you know, it's literally going to, when you go to sit it down, it's going to push it off. And you know, it's you know, so you have to really watch that. And it's horrible trying to super glue a very strong magnet to the thing, because it wants to stick to everything. Yeah, there we go. I finally got it. I had to push it into the paper a little bit, or push it into the, and see, there we go. I just pulled it right off. I don't know what, you know, this was getting late that day, and I was getting frustrated because I glued my fingers together like twice. It was a rough day, and see, this is what it kept doing. It kept flipping over. I was, as I say, I had to take the audio out of this because I'm just grumbling and cursing at this point. Okay, and here we are, finally. I have a few more things that I'm going to do. I did not do any. I'm going to do. What I'm going to do? I'm going to do the next video. I'm going to do stairs in the next video. I'm going to do the upstairs shutters. I'm not going to do the ones that like I did downstairs. I'm going to do actual shutters, but no window panes. And I'm going to level some stuff out. I'm going to create a ground and create a little bit of foliage. Create like maybe like a tarp or something, like hanging off of the. Here, like, yeah, I'll shake it. Hey, it doesn't fall apart. Yay. There's a few things I'm going to do, and I might age the walls up a little bit. So, anyway, I'm so sorry that it took so long to do this thing, and I'm not really sure how long. I'm hoping I'm going to do something smaller on the next video, so that way I can actually get the thing out at a timely manner. But I hope that you like this, and I'm hoping very soon I'll have some layouts and some templates for anybody who wants to try to do it on their own, and maybe do it a lot better than the way I did it. Alright, so anyway, that's all I have for now, and I'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.